Hi everybody, today we're working on Unit 4, Lesson 9. We're going to be doing partial products multiplication again today. Our objective is to be able to solve 2-digit by 2-digit multiplication problems using the partial products method. Make sure that you have your slate, marker, everyday math journal, and a pencil ready for the lesson. Here's your warm-up. Go ahead and solve these 3 problems. You should be able to solve these very quickly. Write these answers down on your slate. Don't forget to look for that basic fact. Hopefully you said that 4 times 50 is 200. I get that by doing 4 times 5, and that gives me 20, and then I add a 0 over at the end of my product. When I do 30 times 7, I'm going to get 210. Again, my basic fact here is 3 times 7, which gives me 21, and I add my 0 to the end of the answer. My last one here, 7 times 8, that gives me 56, and then I have 2 zeros to add on to the end of my number. So my answer is 5,600. How'd you do? So remember, partial products multiplication is just a simpler way of recording the process of rectangle partitioning. What that means is that partial products is a quicker and more efficient way to solve the multiplication problems that you cannot do in your head. Take a look at the picture below and look at how 20 times 34 is solved. Notice that my 600 inside of my box matches the 600 over here on the side when I did partial products multiplication. Because I started in my tens column and I did 30 times 20, and I know that that is 600, and then I went into my other numbers to continue with the multiplication, and we'll get into how to do the double-digit multiplication using partial products here in just a minute. So if you look at 20 times 34, how is that different from the problems that we've solved earlier in this week? Hopefully you're noticing that it's a 2-digit times a 2-digit number. This makes the steps for solving a little bit longer, but it's still pretty simple when you use the steps that we do for partial products multiplication. I'm going to show you how to do this on the next slide. So, if you look on page number 130, at the top, it says, draw a partitioned rectangle to represent the multiplication problems. Then use partial products to record your work in a simpler way. When I draw my partitioned rectangle, I'm going to do 20 on this side because that's a number that I can use and multiply in my head pretty quickly using that basic fact strategy. And then I'm going to split it into 30 and 4. So on the inside of my box here, I would do 20 times 30, which gives me 2 times 3 is 6, and then I have 2 zeros, so I get 600. Then I know that 20 times 4 gives me 80. So I set up the partitioned rectangle. This is how I would solve it. I don't have to keep going because I'm going to actually solve using partial products. So when I do this, I'm going to set it up with 34 at the top times 20. I need to start in my tens place and do my multiplication. So I'm going to write my thinking out to the side. So I have my 3 is in my tens place, so it's worth 30 times 20 because my 2 is in the tens place. That gives me 600. So I'm going to write 600 down here. Then I would go and do 30 times 0. But 30 times 0 gives me 0, so I'm not going to add anything. Then I'm going to switch over into my ones column and do 4 times 20 because my 2 is in my tens place. And I get 80. And then when I multiply both my ones, 4 times 0, I get 0. So the only thing I have to add here is 80. Then I can get my answer of a total of 680. Basically what I did to be able to solve here with the 2-digit multiplication, I did 30 times 20, then I did 30 times 0. Then I went over to my ones place and I did 4 times 20, which goes right here. And then I did 4 times 0. So all of my digits met with each other and did multiplication. And then I added up the answers that I got from doing that multiplication. So what I want you to do now is to copy this work down into problem number 1 in your journal, and then we're going to move on and try number 2 together. Alright, so you should be able to, on your own right now, draw the partitioned rectangle. This time, we're going to split up both numbers. I'm going to split 17 up into 10 and 7. So I need to split, my line's a little bit wonky here. I'm splitting it up because I can't really do any mental math finding a basic fact using the numbers 10 or using 17. So I'm going to split it into 10 and 7. Then up here I'm going to split it up into 30 and 4. So in my first box I'll have 10 times 30, which equals 300. Then I'll have 10 times 4 in the next box, which equals 40. What do you think goes in the bottom box? 7 times 30. Which equals 210. And 7 times 4, which equals 28. So these 4 numbers would be what I add together. But now I want you to watch as I do partial products. I'm going to line it up as 34 times 17. I like to put my larger number on the top. So what I need to do here is I'm going to start in my tens place, and I'm going to do 30 times 10. Remember, it's 30 times 10 because both the 3 and the 1 are in the tens place. And I know that 3 times 1 is 3, and I have 2 zeros to put towards the end. So I'm going to write 300 down here for me to do my addition. Then I need to do 30 times 7. Because my 30 needs to meet up with my 7. I know that 7 times 3 is 21, and I have 1 zero. So I'm going to add 210 down here. Now I'm ready to move on to my ones place. This time I'm going to do 4 times 10. 4 times 10 gives me 40. And then I have 4 times 7, which gives me 28. So I'm going to add 40 and 28 down here. When I add up my numbers, 0 plus 8 is 8, 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 2 is 7, and I have 3 plus 2, which is 5. So my final answer is 578. I wrote my work on the side here so that you could really see and understand where I was getting the numbers over here from. Remember that all of the numbers have to meet up with each other in order to be able to multiply them together to get your final answer. So I want you to take a look at the example page over here, and let's try to figure out, how did they get these numbers? How'd they get 2,100? Well, they did 30 times 70. Then they got that from here. Then they did theirs a little bit differently, but it still comes out to the same answer. They would do 30 times 70, and then we would do 30 times 6. And then we would move on to the ones place and do 8 times 70, sorry. And you get 560. And then 8 times 6, which is 48. And notice that all 4 of these numbers match what they have in the side. Then you add those 4 numbers up and you get a final total here of 2,888. When you do a 2-digit times 2-digit number, you will always have 4 numbers to add up, even if it's 0. You'll always have 4 numbers here, like how I have right here. You'll always have 4, because all 4 digits in the 2 numbers have to meet up together. So I'm going to do one more like this with you, and then you're going to do 4 and 5 on your own. So I will show you the steps on the side again so that you can see what my thinking is. I have 73 times 87. Where do I start first? I need to start in the tens place. In the tens place, I have 7 times 8, but I know that it's going to be 70 times 80 because they're both in the tens place. Then I'm going to do 70 times 7, which will give me an answer. Now what should I do? My 7 has met with both digits. Now I need to move on to my ones place, and now I have 3 times 8. Three times 8. What's that going to give me? It's going to give me 24. And then I have 3 times, oh, but do you know what I did wrong there? It's not 3 times 8, it's 3 times 80, which will give me 240. And then I have 3 times 7. Both digits are in the ones place, therefore it's just 3 times 7. And I know that 3 times 7 gives me 21. So what I'm going to do is add up those digits. So I have 5,600 plus 490 plus 240 plus 21. And I add them together and I get a final answer of 6,351. And I'm going to circle my answer. The work on the side is just to explain my thinking. If your brain is able to do the math of saying, I know 70 times 80 is 5,600, you can just write it under here and do the addition. That's enough work. Over here, this is to explain my thinking, and for some of you, this is really important so that you don't get confused. So you're going to do problems 4 and 5 on your own. I need to be able to see your work. You'll know that you got the correct answer if you get 1,232 and 8,188. But you have to show your work. You have to show the addition. And you might even want to show the thinking when you multiply all the numbers together. Now let's look at problem 6. Problem 6 says, Eli solved 28 times 37 like this. He showed his thinking in the blue. He has 3 times 20 is 60. 3 times 8 is 24. 7 times 20 is 140. And 7 times 8 is 56. What mistake did Eli make? Does he have four numbers to add up? Yes. I want you to carefully look right now. Look at when he multiplied those digits together. What mistake did he do? He wrote 3 times 20. Does that mean 3 times 20? No, this is 30 times 20 because both the 2 and the 3 are in the tens place. So 30 times 20 gives you an answer of 600. So what do you think? What do you think we should write for what mistake did he make? Eli multiplied 3 times 20 in the first step, but he should have multiplied 30 times 20 because the 2 is in the tens place. That's a mistake that I often see on many students' work, so don't let that be you. Don't let that trick you. Make sure that you pay close attention to place value when you do that multiplication. Now it says, sketch a partitioned rectangle that could help Eli understand what he did wrong. So if I'm going to draw my rectangle, I'm going to split it up into, my 37 will be into 30 and 7. And then my 28 would be 20 and 8. Inside of here, what would I have? 30 times 20, 30 times 8, 20 times 7, and 7 times 8. So go ahead and copy that down into your math journal. Make sure that you do problems 4 and 5. You can check your answer with what I put on the board. And then you're going to move on to do Math Box 4-9. Math Box 4-9 is pretty simple. Remember that a ray has one endpoint and one arrow that goes on forever. You're going to use partial products to solve in number 2. In box 3, you need to round to the nearest 1,000. Round to the nearest 1,000, so underline your digit in the thousands place and look to the digit to the right and see what it tells you to do. Be very careful on problems in box 4. I'll do the first one with you as an example. It says 45 is blank times as many as 9. And blank times as many as 5. So 45 is 5 times as many as 9. And 9 times as many as 5. So you use the digits in the equation to help you fill in the blanks. Number 5 says, solve problem 2 using a different strategy. You can explain how your work is different there. You can partition the rectangle to solve. So that's how I want you to solve for box 5. Then you need to do whatever else your teacher has assigned to you in Canvas.